Kashmir conflict. Recent developments. India continues to assert its sovereignty or rights over the entire region of Kashmir, while Pakistan maintains that it is a disputed territory. Pakistan argues that the status quo cannot be considered as a solution and further insists on a UN-sponsored plebiscite. Unofficially, the Pakistani leadership has indicated that they would be willing to accept alternatives such as a demilitarized Kashmir, if sovereignty of Azad Kashmir was to be extended over the Kashmir Valley, or the Chenab formula, by which India would retain parts of Kashmir on its side of the Chenab River, and Pakistan the other side, effectively repartitioning Kashmir on communal lines. The problem with the proposal is that the population of the Pakistan-administered portion of Kashmir is for the most part ethnically, linguistically, and culturally different from the Valley of Kashmir, a part of Indian-administered Kashmir. Partition based on the Chenab formula is opposed by some Kashmiri politicians, although others, including Sajjad Lone, have suggested that the non-Muslim part of Jammu and Kashmir be separated from Kashmir and handed to India. Some political analysts say that the Pakistan state policy shift and mellowing of its aggressive stance may have to do with its total failure in the Kargil War and the subsequent 9/11 attacks. These events put pressure on Pakistan to alter its position on terrorism. Many neutral parties to the dispute have noted that the UN resolution on Kashmir is no longer relevant. The European Union holds the view that the plebiscite is not in Kashmiri's interest. The report notes that the UN conditions for such a plebiscite have not been, and can no longer be, met by Pakistan. The Hurriyat Conference observed in 2003 that a plebiscite is no longer an option. Besides the popular factions that support one or other of the parties, there is a third faction which supports independence and withdrawal of both India and Pakistan. These have been the respective stands of the parties for a long while, and there have been no significant changes over the years. As a result, all efforts to solve the conflict have so far proved futile. Revelations made on September 24, 2013 by the former Indian Army Chief General V.K. Singh claim that the state politicians of Jammu and Kashmir are funded by the Army Secret Service to keep the general public calm and that this activity has been going on since partition. In a 2001 report entitled Pakistan's Role in the Kashmir Insurgency from the American Rand Corporation, the think tank noted that the nature of the Kashmir conflict has been transformed from what was originally a secular, locally based struggle, conducted via the Jammu Kashmir Liberation Front, JKLF, to one that is now largely carried out by foreign militants and rationalized in pan-Islamic religious terms. The majority of militant organizations are composed of foreign mercenaries, mostly from the Pakistani Punjab. In 2010, with the support of its intelligence agencies, Pakistan again boosted Kashmir militants, and recruitment of mujahideen in the Pakistani state of Punjab has increased. In 2011, the FBI revealed that Pakistan's spy agency IC paid millions of dollars into a United States-based non-governmental organization to influence politicians and opinion makers on the Kashmir issue and arrested Syed Ghulam Nabi Fai. The Freedom in the World 2006 report categorized Indian-administered Kashmir as partly free, and Pakistan-administered Kashmir, as well as the country of Pakistan, as not free. India claims that contrary to popular belief, a large proportion of the Jammu and Kashmir populace wishes to remain with India. A Mori survey found that within Indian-administered Kashmir, 61% of respondents said they felt they would be better off as Indian citizens, with 33% saying that they did not know, and the remaining 6% favoring Pakistani citizenship. However, this support for India was mainly in the Ladakh and Jammu regions, not the Kashmir Valley, where only 9% of the respondents said that they would be better off with India. According to a 2007 poll conducted by the Center for the Study of Developing Societies in New Delhi, 87% of respondents in the Kashmir Valley prefer independence over union with India or Pakistan. However, a survey by Chatham House in both Indian and Pakistani-administered Kashmir found that support for independence stood at 43% and 44% respectively. The 2005 Kashmir earthquake, which killed over 80,000 people, led to India and Pakistan finalizing negotiations for the opening of a road for disaster relief through Kashmir. Efforts to end the crisis. The 9/11 attacks on the United States resulted in the U.S. government wanting to restrain militancy in the world, including Pakistan. They urged Islamabad to cease infiltrations, which continue to this day, by Islamist militants into Indian-administered Kashmir. In December 2001, A terrorist attack on the Indian parliament linked to Pakistan resulted in war threats, massive troop deployments, and international fears of a nuclear war in the subcontinent. After intensive diplomatic efforts by other countries, India and Pakistan began to withdraw troops from the international border on June 10, 2002, and negotiations restarted. From November 26, 2003, India and Pakistan agreed to maintain a ceasefire along the undisputed international border, the disputed line of control, an actual ground position line near the Sakhan Glacier. This was the first such total ceasefire declared by both powers in nearly 15 years. In February 2004, Pakistan increased pressure on Pakistanis fighting in Indian-administered Kashmir to adhere to the ceasefire. Their neighbors launched several other mutual confidence-building measures. Restarting the bus service between the Indian and Pakistani-administered Kashmir has helped diffuse tensions between the countries, while both India and Pakistan have decided to cooperate on economic fronts. In 2005, General Musharraf as well as other Pakistani leaders sought to resolve the Kashmir issue through the Chenab Formula roadmap. Based on the Dixon Plan, the Chenab Formula assigns Ladakh to India, Gilgit-Baltistan, GB, to Pakistan, proposes a plebiscite in the Kashmir Valley and splits Jammu into two halves. On December 5, 2006, Pakistani President Pervez Musharraf told an Indian TV channel that Pakistan would give up its claim on Kashmir if India accepted some of his peace proposals, including a phased withdrawal of troops, self-governance for locals, no changes in the borders of Kashmir, and a joint supervision mechanism involving India, Pakistan, and Kashmir. Musharraf stated that he was ready to give up the United Nations resolutions regarding Kashmir. 2008 militant attacks. In the week of March 10, 2008, 17 people were wounded when a blast hit the region's only highway overpass located near the Civil Secretariat, the seat of government of Indian-controlled Kashmir, and the region's High Court. A gun battle between security forces and militants fighting against Indian rule left 5 people dead and 2 others injured on March 23, 2008. The battle began when security forces raided a house on the outskirts of the capital city of Srinagar housing militants. The Indian Army has been carrying out cordon and search operations against militants in Indian-administered Kashmir since the violence broke out in 1989. While the authorities say 43,000 people have been killed in the violence, various human rights groups and non-governmental organizations have put the figure at twice that number. According to the Government of India Home Ministry, 2008 was the year with the lowest civilian casualties in 20 years, with 89 deaths, compared to a high of 1,413 in 1996. In 2008, 85 security personnel died compared to 613 in 2001, while 102 militants were killed. The human rights situation improved, with only 1 custodial death, and no custodial disappearances. Many analysts say Pakistan's preoccupation with jihadis within its own borders explains the relative calm. 2008 Kashmir protests. Massive demonstrations occurred after plans by the Indian-administered Jammu and Kashmir state government to transfer 100 acres, 0.40 square kilometers, of land to a trust which runs the Hindu Amarnath shrine in the Muslim-majority Kashmir Valley. This land was to be used to build a shelter to house Hindu pilgrims temporarily during their annual pilgrimage to the Amarnath temple. Such demonstrations have been aloof of the fact that the India government very regularly undertakes activities for upliftment of Muslim community, as a secular government, and very regularly donates lands and other properties to the systemized Waqf boards. Indian security forces and the Indian Army responded quickly to keep order. More than 40 unarmed protesters were killed and at least 300 were detained. The largest protests saw more than 500,000 people waving Pakistani flags and crying for freedom at a rally on 18 August, according to Time magazine. Pro-independence Kashmiri leader Mirwais Umar Farooq warned that the peaceful uprising could lead to an upsurge in violence if India's heavy-handed crackdown on protests was not restrained. The United Nations expressed concern at India's response to peaceful protests and urged investigations be launched against Indian security personnel who had taken part in the crackdown. Separatists and political party workers were believed to be behind stone-throwing incidents, which have led to retaliatory fire from the police. An auto rickshaw laden with stones meant for distribution was seized by the police in March 2009. Following the unrest in 2008, secessionist movements got a boost. 2008 Kashmir Elections. State elections were held in Indian-administered Kashmir in 7 phases, starting on 17 November and finishing on December 24, 2008. In spite of calls by separatists for a boycott, an unusually high turnout of more than 60% was recorded. The National Conference Party, which was founded by Sheikh Abdullah and is regarded as pro-India, emerged with a majority of the seats. On 30 December, the Congress Party and the National Conference agreed to form a coalition government, with Omar Abdullah as chief minister. On January 5, 2009, Abdullah was sworn in as the 11th chief minister of Jammu and Kashmir. In March 2009, Abdullah stated that only 800 militants were active in the state and out of these only 30% were Kashmiris. 2009 Kashmir protests. In 2009, protests started over the alleged rape and murder of 2 young women in Shopian in South Kashmir. Suspicion pointed towards the police as the perpetrators. A judicial inquiry by a retired High Court official confirmed the suspicion, but a CBI inquiry reversed their conclusion. This gave fresh impetus to popular agitation against India. Significantly, the unity between the separatist parties was lacking this time. 2010 Kashmir Unrest. The 2010 Kashmir Unrest was a series of protests in the Muslim-majority Kashmir Valley in Jammu and Kashmir which started in June 2010. These protests involved the Quit Jammu Kashmir movement launched by the Hurriyat Conference led by Syed Ali Shah Gilani and Mirwais Umar Farooq, who had called for the complete demilitarization of Jammu and Kashmir. The All-Parties Hurriyat Conference made this call to protest, citing human rights abuses by Indian troops. Chief Minister Omar Abdullah attributed the 2010 unrest to the fake encounter staged by the military in Makal. Protesters shouted pro-independence slogans, defied curfews, attacked security forces with stones and burnt police vehicles and government buildings. The Jammu and Kashmir police and Indian paramilitary forces fired live ammunition on the protesters, resulting in 112 deaths, including many teenagers. The protests subsided after the Indian government announced a package of measures aimed at diffusing the tensions in September 2010. 2014 Jammu and Kashmir Elections. The Jammu and Kashmir Legislative Assembly election, 2014 was held in Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir in 5 phases from 25 November, December 20, 2014. Despite repeated boycott calls by separatist Hurriyat leaders, elections recorded highest voters turnout in last 25 years, that is more than 65%, which is more than usual voting percentage in other states of India. Phase-wise voting percentages as follow. The European Parliament, on the behalf of European Union, welcomed the smooth conduct of the state legislative elections in the Jammu and Kashmir. The EU in its message said, "The high voter turnout figure proves that democracy is firmly rooted in India." The EU would like to congratulate India and its democratic system for conduct of fair elections, unmarred by violence, in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. The European Parliament also takes cognizance of the fact that a large number of Kashmiri voters turned out despite calls for the boycott of elections by certain separatist forces. October 2014. In October 2014, Indian and Pakistani troops traded gunfire over their border in the divided Himalayan region of Kashmir, killing at least 4 civilians and worsening tensions between the longtime rivals, officials on both sides have said. The small arms and mortar exchanges, which Indian officials called the worst violation of the 2003 ceasefire, left 18 civilians wounded in India and another 3 in Pakistan. Tens of thousands of people fled their homes on both sides after the violence erupted on 5 October. Official reports state that 9 civilians in Pakistan and 7 in India were killed in 3 nights of fighting. July 2016. On July 8, 2016, a popular militant leader Burhan Muzaffar Wani was cornered by the security forces and killed. Following his death, protests and demonstrations have taken root, leading to an amplified instability in the Kashmir Valley. Curfews have been imposed in all 10 districts of Kashmir and over 40 civilians died and over 2,000 injured in clashes with the police. More than 600 have palate injuries who may lose their eyesight. To prevent volatile rumors, cell phone and internet services have been blocked, and newspapers have also been restricted in many parts of the state. September 2016. An attack by 4 militants on an Indian Army base on September 18, 2016, also known as the 2016 Uri attack, resulted in the death of 19 soldiers as well as the militants themselves. Although no one claimed responsibility for the attack, the militant group Jaish-e-Mohammed was suspected of involvement by the Indian authorities. The Indians were particularly shaken by the event, which they blamed on Islamabad. Response took various forms, including the postponement of the 19th SAARC summit, asking the Russian government to call off a joint military exercise with Pakistan, and the Indian Motion Picture Producers Association decision to suspend work with Pakistan. On the Pakistani side, military alertness was raised and some Pakistan International Airlines flights suspended. The Pakistani government denied any role in cross-border terrorism, and called on the United Nations and the international community to investigate atrocities it alleged had been committed by the security forces in Indian-ruled Kashmir.